Today we're going to be starting the book Upstate by James Wood. In Upstate, the celebrated critic James Wood delivers a profound and searching novel about a family struggling to connect with one another and find meaning in their own lives. In the years since his daughter Vanessa moved to America to become a professor of philosophy, Alan Query has never been to visit. He has been too busy at home in northern England holding together his business as a successful property developer. His younger daughter, Helen, a music executive in London, hasn't gone either, and the two sisters, close but competitive, have never quite recovered from their parents' bitter divorce and the early death of their mother. But when Vanessa's new boyfriend sends word that she has fallen into a severe depression and that he's worried for her safety, Alan and Helen fly to New York and take the train to Saratoga Springs. Over the course of 6 wintry days in upstate New York, the Query family begins to struggle with the questions that animate this novel. Why do some people find living so much harder than others? Is happiness a skill that might be learned or a lucky accident of birth? Is reflection conducive to happiness or an obstacle to it? If, as a favorite philosopher of Helen's puts it, the only serious enterprise is living, how should we live? Rich in subtle human insight, full of potent and often funny portraits, and vivid with a sense of place, James Wood's Upstate is an intense and beautiful novel. Okay, so now that I have read what the book is about, let's dive into it. First, he would have to go and see his mother. He would tell her something about Vanessa, not everything, of course. The home, 6 miles along a favorite road, was a formidable old place, with that gray strictness of the north he loved. But now it looked abandoned. Everything was in wintry abeyance. 4 years she had been living there, and he was still never sure how to announce himself. It was also ridiculously expensive. He could no longer afford it. What did he get for the money? 2 small rooms rather than 1? Extra space for the dark massing of a lifetime's heavy old furniture? And maybe she got 2 biscuits with her tea on Fridays. He made his way through the 2 huffing fire doors, which bottled a weekend's stale yeast, school food. Outside his mother's room, Clarendon, he gathered himself a bit like a clown, pulling up his trousers, dusting down his coat, and entering with a light knock. The television was off, thank goodness. She was asleep in the chintz chair his father had used as the family throne, issuing directives and decrees from behind his newspaper. She was tiny, sunken. Some of her teeth were out. The old music hall joke, her teeth are like stars, they come out at night. But it was early afternoon. As she breathed, something seemed to catch in her throat. She'd always had a large nose, and now she seemed to be reducing around it, shrinking down to bone. The nose tenacious, final, root-like. I have hers, so this will be mine. Right enough. He knelt beside her and whispered. She opened her eyes and said, with slight affront, "When did you get here, Alan?" As if he'd been spying on her. "Just a second ago." "Fetch me my teeth by the side of the bed, please, in the glass." She turned away from him to insert the plate. "Now we need to call for some tea and biscuits. They'll bring it, if you ask." As a child in a lower middle-class suburb of Edinburgh, she had made herself unpopular at school by affecting an English or maybe Anglo-Scots pronunciation. Since his dad's death, her accent seemed to have moved up in the rank, seemed to have moved up the ranks again by another notch or two. It usually had the effect of making her sound slightly irritable. In truth, these days she sounded like the mistress but looked more like the servant, short, bent, too modestly or shabbily dressed today. "You don't need to wear this shawl thing, do you?" he said, lifting it over her shoulders. "Certainly not. I just put it on for my nap. Thank you. You look very tired. You know you can't burn your candle at both ends. A Roman candle, maybe." He had just had his 68th birthday. "How are you?" "All right, I suppose. But this English view isn't my landscape, of course," she added, gesturing at the window with splendid authority. "Well, it's not a bad one," he said, looking at the line of leafless trees and the icy hills. He was paying for that English view. "And we've been over this. You don't want to live with me. You need your independence. Though it would be a lot cheaper if you did move in with us." "Absolutely not. I took in your grandmother, as you perfectly well know, and it made my 50s a complete blank. All I did day after day was look after her. I'll never do that to you." In that house, the two women had seemed to detest each other with stealthy expertise. Each made the other immovably depressed. "But you do want me to visit. But you do want me to visit, and I want you to visit." He took her hand. "You're no good to me 3 hours away up in Scotland, even though you'd have your own landscape there," he said gently. The tea arrived, carried by a very red teenage boy. He offered a biscuit to both of them, and then left, making sure to take the full plate with him. "Wartime rations round here," said his mother. The young man appeared again. "Mrs. Query," he said, "I'm supposed to remind you that the residents are gathering at 3:30 in the Sun Lounge for the winter flu vaccination. It's, the booster for them that missed it the first time around. Need any help?" "No, I have my son, thank you." The room could have been a lot worse. High ceilings with ornate moldings, Roman laurels almost, textured wallpaper with chips in it like slivered almonds, though in fact these always made him think of splinters caught under a child's skin, all painted a pleasant cream. And parental things he had known all his life. A watercolor reproduction of Durham Cathedral, an antique mirror that you couldn't really see yourself in. It looked valuable, but he knew it wasn't. A cushion whose faded lilac cover, bought by him at Heel's, London, on the Tottenham Court Road, had not been replaced in 30 years at least. It was all pretty good, or as good as it can be when one's whole life has been reduced to souvenirs of selfhood. It was a nice place, but he couldn't afford it any longer. Okay, I'm going to stop at page 5 and take a short break. She looked at him with her pale blue eyes. Vanessa's. "This whole place is up in arms. My next-door neighbor lost his hearing aid yesterday, and she put it in some tissue paper on her bedside table with the cleaner through it. My next-door neighbor lost her hearing aid yesterday, She put it in some tissue paper on her bedside table, and the cleaner threw it out by mistake. She thought it was a bit of rubbish. And in the room that's just 2 doors down the hall, Mary Bennett is furious because she likes to talk French to other women here who can understand it. She's the only woman who can, and now Mary's been told to stop talking French by the staff. Apparently, someone else, we all assumed it's one of the residents, and I have a very good idea who, has complained that they're speaking a secret language to exclude everyone else. I'll miss it. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I liked hearing the French. And now the manager is leaving at the end of the month. She's only been here for 6 months. She's Czech, I think. A nice woman, though for some reason she hates to be thought of as Polish. He interrupted her. Ma, I have to go to America for a week. America? Well, on business? She always had enjoyed enunciating these. She had always enjoyed enunciating those words, so he spoke them back to her with finality. On business. Well, don't get caught up in anything. Caught up in anything? It's a dangerous place, from what I hear. There was that terrible thing with the towers. You'll go and see Vanessa. She's always wanted you to visit her in that place. In Saratoga Springs? Yes, I wanted to say in Sarsaparilla. I will see her, and I will see her, and Josh. Oh, good Lord, courage there. He's far too young and certainly not good enough for her. You've never even met him. Yes, that's 2 of us, but I do have a telephone here. You know, I get reports. And I was about to say, before you interrupted me, that Vanessa isn't getting any younger, is she? Ma, I can't keep up with you. Now you're giving him your blessing? Well, why shouldn't the poor thing have a boyfriend? Maybe Josh is the one. And when they marry, you'll blame him for taking Vanessa away. Vanessa was already away. Well away. She did her PhD there, not here, after all. That was the beginning. Silly girl, it was a shame she didn't come back at Christmas. I suppose she'd rather spend time with her boo. There was a moment or 2 of old-fashioned silence, the tick of his mother's fancy carriage clock, his gift. Alan, love, can you help me to the sunroom? I want to get there early, while the needle is still sharp. They smiled at each other, and he helped her up and went beside her as she gripped the mouse grade. Alan, love, can you help me to the sunroom? I want to get there early, while the needle is still sharp. They smiled at each other, and he helped her up and went beside her as she gripped the mouse grade tubular walker. A marvel of engineering, as strong as a weightlifter, but as light as the bones of a very old lady, with wheels on the front and 2 splayed yellow tennis balls stuck on the back legs. These dragged along the carpet as the aged couple, mother and son, moved slowly down the corridor. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 1. So we will continue with chapter 2 in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here, and I am excited for you to come along my book journey in my book club. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue Upstate by James Atwood in the next episode.